Hi everyone! So over the course of 6 weeks, I did my observational placement in a grade 12 classroom. I began shifting my mindset from a former student to the mindset of an emerging educator. This experience wasn't just about observing the teacher. It was about understanding how teaching is built on constant reflection, professional judgment, emotional intelligence, and collaboration. Today I'm going to go through the most meaningful moments from my placement, share some of my artifacts, and reflect on how this experience shaped my personal and professional growth as a future educator. Before starting my placement, I had clear goals for what I wanted to learn. I didn't want to just watch the teacher. I wanted to understand which teaching strategies actually engage students by paying attention to their reactions, body language, and participation. I also wanted to see emotional intelligence and reflective practice happening in real time. Another goal was to strengthen my professionalism. And finally, I wanted to improve my classroom management skills and learn how teachers balance authority with approachability. So my placement took place in a grade 12 classroom with an experienced teacher. Her name was Miss Modica. So I visited 6 times, and each visit revealed a completely different dimension of what it means to teach. So in my first visit, I learned how reverse planning and long-term curriculum design work in the real classroom. In my second visit, I experienced a real lockdown, which showed me emotional intelligence, calm authority, and crisis management in action. During my third visit, I observed ethical assignment design and reflected on how teachers consider student well-being when creating their tasks. In my fourth visit, I saw how teachers collaborate professionally behind the scenes to create consistency and fairness across classrooms. In my fifth visit, I observed the emotional labor of teaching and the importance of a strong teacher community for support. And lastly, in my sixth visit, this visit was the most transformative for me because I taught my first lesson and I applied everything I had learned about classroom management, reflective judgment, and professional identity. So together, these 6 visits created a full picture of teaching with intellectual, emotional, ethical, relational, and deeply reflective information. So one of the first and biggest realization moments for me was seeing how the teacher planned her entire year backwards. This connected directly to Dewey's reflective practice because planning wasn't just random, it was thoughtful, intentional, and grounded in evidence about what students need to succeed. It also related to Kolb's experimental learning cycle. Reverse planning sets the end learning experience first, and then the teacher creates opportunities for concrete experience, reflection, conceptualization, and experimentation. So here's an example of Miss Modica's first and last month semester plan that she shared with me. So this helped me understand how deeply teachers think about sequencing, timing, and scaffolding. My second visit became memorable for a very unexpected and negative reason, because the school went into a lockdown. I had experienced these as a student, but never as someone who might one day be responsible for a class. The moment it happened, I saw emotional intelligence in action. Miss Modica stayed completely calm, her tone was steady, her instructions were clear, and the students mirrored her confidence. This was evidently Shun's reflection in action. She used past experiences and professional judgment to respond instantly. What stood out to me was how much of teaching involves being the emotional anchor for students, especially during times of uncertainty. I also realized how much responsibility teachers truly carry. It's not just about academic success, it's about safety, emotional well-being, and leadership under pressure. That moment alone made me recognize how much I still have to grow in terms of calmness, confidence, and emotional regulation. The following video demonstrates a perfect example of why it is so important for teachers to be emotionally regulated in stressful times, as students determine the severity of a situation based on their teacher's reaction.
One day we were in the classroom and we were studying ancient Greece, and suddenly I just saw her face go completely white, and she was looking at the clock. So me and all the other kids in the class just looked up at the clock too, but instead of it saying the time, it said bell. And I later found out that bell was the code word for a real lockdown, but I didn't know that yet. So my classmates and I just watched as she scrambled to lock the door, close the blinds, and then she instructed us to hide in the corner of the room. And then she just says, "Stay quiet, we're in a lockdown." And she was in tears at this point. She was shaking and she was curled up in the corner behind her desk. This was the moment when I realized this wasn't a lockdown drill. This was an actual lockdown.
Another important learning moment came when I watched the teacher design an assignment that involved personal reflection for students. Miss Modica told me something that stuck with me. She said, "You can't ask students to reflect on their lives without being prepared for what they share." That single statement opened up a whole new understanding for me about the ethics of teaching. This related to our course readings about minimizing harm, being aware of student emotional realities, and balancing care with professional boundaries. So here is a copy of a rubric for one of Ms. Modica's assignment, which highlights how tone, wording, and expectations all influence how safe students feel. One of the deepest conversations I had during placement was about how teachers deal with sensitive student issues, things like anxiety, eating disorders, depression, and bullying. Ms. Modica explained that teachers often become the first adults to notice when something is wrong, but they still need to maintain boundaries and connect students with the right supporters. Teachers are not therapists, but they often become that initial point of contact. This helped me understand teaching as a moral and relational work. It also connected to critical, reflective conversations from class, where teachers have to question their assumptions, consider context, and think about how their decisions impact students' well-being. This part of my placement made me think differently about the emotional weight teachers carry and the importance of knowing when to step in, when to step back, and when to ask for help. In my later visits, I began noticing how much work teachers do outside of the classroom. For example, I watched teachers discuss students who were struggling academically or behaviorally. They compared notes, aligned expectations, and discussed consistent approaches. This was my first time seeing the coordinated professionalism in action. Teachers weren't just doing their own thing, they were working as a team. I saw teachers check in with one another, offer help, share frustrations, and even give each other quick breaks when needed. I realized how important the teacher community is for preventing burnout and creating a positive environment. This helped me understand that emotional intelligence isn't only used with students, it's also essential among colleagues. This matched what our course calls an extended professionalism, where teachers contribute to a larger school culture. This experience helped me understand that classroom management isn't just an individual skill, it's also a collective responsibility. During my final placement visit, I had had the most transformative experience of all. I actually taught a lesson. This was the moment where everything I had been observing finally became something I could apply myself. Before teaching, I could feel the themes from our week 2 readings running through my mind, especially the ideas of responsibility and emotional presence. For the first time, I wasn't just watching a teacher manage a classroom. I was the person students were looking to for clarity, expectations, and directions. One of the biggest things I applied was the importance of predictability and consistency in classroom management. Before I even started the lesson, I outlined what we were doing, what students needed out, and how participation would work. This connected to our week 3 idea about reflective judgment. Instead of assuming students should just know, I thought intentionally about what clarity looks like from the student's perspective. During the lesson, I worked really hard to use tone, pacing, and presence intentionally, something I learned from watching Mrs. Modica. When a few students got chatty, I paused and waited quietly instead of talking over them. That moment made me realize how much emotional intelligence goes into teaching. Pausing instead of reacting felt like the reflection in action that Schoen describes, and students quickly refocused without me raising my voice. I also paid attention to the emotional energy in the room. When a student looked confused, I rephrased the instructions. When another seemed disengaged, I moved closer to that side of the room. These moment-to-moment decisions felt like small but meaningful applications of everything that I had been learning. After the lesson, I got to debrief with Miss Modica. Her feedback connected with week 4's experiential learning cycle. The lesson was my concrete experience, the debrief was my reflection, and her insights helped me conceptualize what to change next time. The most impactful thing she said was, "You held the room." That made me realize how much I had grown in terms of confidence, authority, and awareness across all 6 placement visits. I left that day feeling like my teacher identity had genuinely started to take shape. When I connected my placement experiences back to the course concepts, everything finally came together. Dewey's reflective attitudes showed up constantly in the decisions teachers made and even how I approached teaching my own lesson. Shun's ideas of reflection in action and reflection on action also made sense in a new way after I taught. And then, of course, emotional intelligence, which was visible throughout my entire placement. These theories gave me the language to understand what I was living through, and the placement helped the theory finally feel real. My understanding of teaching changed the most after my final placement visit when I actually taught the lesson, as I noticed a shift in how I saw myself. That moment helped me understand my emerging teacher identity, someone who wants to be intentional, calm, ethical, and reflective. I plan to deepen my understanding of classroom management as a relational skill and continue developing my emotional intelligence as an educator. My understanding of education now feels grounded in experience rather than just theory. Teaching my own lesson helped me see that growth comes through doing, reflecting, and being open to feedback. That's the mindset I'm taking with me moving forward. Thank you for listening.